Building voice agents is fun until you hit the iteration loop. You write a prompt, you set up the agent, you run a test call, you listen back to the test call, you then find the flaw, you go fix the prompt, and then you run it again. And if you're running multiple agents or testing different objection paths, that loop kills hours. I've been using Claude Code and the Vapi MCP to tighten that loop significantly. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. First, I will run you through the setup, then through the actual iteration loop, and then lastly, why you actually need to do this. Let's get straight into it. Now, quick context before we get into it. Vapi has a CLI and also an MCP server. And the MCP server is what we can, or what we will use in today's video. You can just Google Vapi MCP server. You will gonna get to this page. This is the docs page. And the goal here is that Claude Code can actually access the documentation to the MCP server, but also access your account and do actions within your account directly through the terminal. The goal is that Claude Code can actually talk to Vapi and fetch assistant configurations, trigger calls, pull call logs, and push updates and those kind of things. And it has actually live context on your actual setup and not just generic Vapi knowledge. Now, most people use Claude Code to write web apps and write backend code, but your voice agents on Vapi don't live in a code base. They actually live on Vapi. So the angle changes. You are not using Claude Code to actually write the code for the agent, but you're using it as an operator interface that can reason about your agents and improve them. And that's the shift. Now, the first step to get this up and running is to actually install the Vapi MCP server. And as you can see, if you go to the Vapi docs, by the way, this link will be in the description down below, you will have the MCP config JSON that you can just go ahead and copy. And what you will need is you need your API key from Vapi. That is so that Claude Code can actually talk to your specific account and not only fetch the docs. You get this API key by going into your Vapi dashboard and then clicking API keys. And then I would recommend you create a new API key. We will call this Claude Code iteration loop. We will leave this blank, this two, and this two, and then we create the private token, and this will be your API key. Now, you shouldn't show this anyone. I will delete this API key after the video, so you don't even have to try to use it. Copy them, hit close, and then it's time to launch Claude Code. And now it's time to launch Claude Code. For that, we will use the terminal, type Claude, allow this folder, and there we are. Now, what I would recommend you to do is to install this MCP server. Just tell Claude to do so. So you would do something like install this MCP server from the URL, and then input the URL here, then paste the configuration. So go back to the to the docs, paste it here, and then you need to change your API key. So navigate with the arrow keys to this section right here, and then paste in your API key. So the one we just created is this one. So we copy this, we go back, and then we just paste it into here. That's the exact configuration for the MCP server. And now Claude Code will know what to do and install it for you. I already did it. That's why I won't execute this command right now, but you would just press enter now and wait until the installation has finished. And now I will remove all of this, and that concludes the setup. Now what Claude can do is Claude can go into our Vapi account and, for example, fetch all of our assistants, or create an assistant, or fetch the calls that we recently made. And that's exactly what we want to do. But before we actually can analyze a call, we need to make a call, and that's what I just will quickly do. I have this demo page where I can just fill in some information. and then I will be called. If you don't want to listen to the demo call, skip to the timestamp on the screen right now. Otherwise, you can listen to the call so you know what we're actually improving upon. But with that, let's just submit it, and then we should receive a call in a few moments. There it already is.
Hi, this is Sarah calling from Coastal Finance. Am I speaking with Tim?
Hi Sarah, this is Tim. How can I help you?
Hey Tim, yeah, thanks for picking up. So you filled out a form online looking for a broker to help with your loan options, right? Just want to make sure I'm chatting with the right person. Is that you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's me.
Great, thanks. So just to get a quick idea, are you looking to buy a place, refinance, or something else?
I want to buy myself a home.
Okay, got it. You're looking to buy a home for yourself. Do you have a particular area or suburb in mind where you're looking?
I'm looking in the Brisbane area.
All right, Brisbane area. Cool. And about the price range, what kind of budget are you thinking for the property?
I'm looking for a budget of around 750k upwards, just because the prices there are fairly steep.
Yeah, that makes sense. So around 750k and up. Got it. And do you have some savings or a deposit ready for this? Or maybe some equity if you're refinancing?
Yeah, I do have savings of around 100k.
Okay, cool. About 100k saved. That helps. And are you employed or self-employed? And is it just you applying or with someone else?
I'm self-employed and it's just me.
All right, self-employed and applying solo. Got it. And you mentioned you want to move as soon as possible, right? Any other things I should know about, like visa status or credit issues?
No, nothing. Thank you. Now I will cut the call short here at this point in time because I engineered a mistake the assistant makes during the call. I want her to always only ask one question at a time. And she did ask 2 questions at a time, which is actually because of something in the system prompt. You will see in a second. She asked me if I was financing alone or with somebody else, and if I'm employed or self-employed. And these are 2 questions that I want to, in a normal conversation, they should be asked separately. And that's exactly what I now want to improve upon. So what we now can do is we just quickly go into the Vapi dashboard. We click on logs and we just check that the call is there. You can see April 18th, 14:43. That's when the call started, with a call ID of, let me just quickly see, 19DA09D. And that's important for us in a second, because if we go back into the terminal, we can now analyze the calls. And now what you could do is you could just go in and tell Claude Code, hey, I've got this call, analyze it and find the mistake and then fix it. But that's just rather unoperationalized. And I like to build systems and do stuff in a structured way, and that's why I built 2 Claude Code skills. If you are familiar with Claude Code, you probably heard about skills. Skills are basically just markdown files, which just describe a process in a structured way, so that whenever I want to execute this process, is always following the same structure, and the end result is then fairly deterministic. Now, you don't have those skills yet, but to your luck, I am running this Voice AI Accelerator. That's my free resource hub, in which you can find all the resources of all of my videos. It's completely free. I think it's like the 2nd or 3rd link in the description down below. Just go down in there and you can access it. And what you will then do is you will just search for the last page here, how I use Claude Code for improving my Vapi voice agents. You click in there, and in here I have the skill.md. If you open those up, this is the exact skills that I have for my process. What you will do is you will go to Claude Code, you will say, hey, I want you to create a skill for analyzing Vapi calls, and then you will copy this, paste it in, click enter, and then Claude Code will build the skill for you so you can reuse it. And you do this once for the call analyst and then once for the prompt repair. Now, the way those two things work together is the following. So first we have like the calls that actually happen. So let's just have this here. This is what we want to analyze. We then go into Claude Code and we tell Claude Code to use the Vapi call analyst to check on those calls and on the call quality. And from this we get a report which we then use in combination with our own input of the call to then call the second skill. So we take the report plus our own opinion about the call, especially if we did the call ourselves, and we take those two things and feed it into the Vapi prompt repair skill. And that skill will then find the specific issue in the system prompt of the agent and propose a fix. And then if we approve the fix, actually push those changes to the agent, and then we can run it again. If that sounded a bit confusing, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, it's very simple. We first analyze it with AI. We add our own opinion to this analysis, and we both put it into another skill, which then actually repairs the system prompt. Now, back in Claude Code, we will actually jump right into using the skill by doing / and then Vapi call analyst. And now we need to specify how many or which calls should be analyzed, and also which assistant or which agent those calls come from. So we will type analyze the most recent call from Kara, because we only want to analyze, in this specific use case, the last call that we actually did, and then the assistant is called Kara. And if we click enter now, what Claude will actually go ahead and do is first it will need to resolve what Kara is or who Kara is to get the assistant ID, and based on the assistant ID it can then go in and fetch the call transcripts. It now found the assistant ID of Kara, what you can see here, and now it will go ahead and fetch the calls. As you can see, Vapi AI call assistant ID, and then let's see what it's doing here. Now it found the full transcript of the call, and now it's doing some stuff. And then at the end of the day, what we will get out of this is the finished analysis, best case at least. And now we have the full call analysis. As you can see, I have everything I need. Here's the full analysis. And then, just whatever Claude noticed during the call. I won't read this right now because I, for myself, already know what I want to improve. And that's why I will just go ahead, take the microphone and do this. I want you to improve that the assistant always only asks one question at a time, because the assistant actually did ask two questions at once. It asked if I am actually buying this home alone, and if I'm self-employed or if I'm an employee. And I want the assistant to not ask both of those questions in one turn, but in two separate turns. And that's the change I want to do. So I just tell the assistant what it actually is that I want to have improved, and that is if I found something myself that I want to have improved. And now I can just paste this in and then do / prompt repair. So call the second skill, click enter, and now we again just wait. And now it will go in, find the system prompt, check everything, see why this happened, and then fix the issue. Okay, so it finished and it found the root issue or the root cause for the two questions. And it's this. We have a line: current income situation, employed, self-employed, and single or joint. which basically says or prompts the assistant to ask both questions at the same time. But it also found or tried to resolve the other issues that Claude found in the previous step. Again, for this step, I will only fix issue 1, and that's what I will type in now. And I now said, okay, good, fix issue 1, don't touch the other ones, because the other ones partially were because of the way that I handled the call, and not necessarily because of the way how the assistant is actually set up. Okay, so what it did is it just basically split out the one line into 2 separate bullets, and now we can just say, yes, push it, and now we should actually see the fix being applied to the assistant. So let's give it a second, and now it's done. It said the single bullet is now 2 separate bullets on live agent. So let's go into the agent and actually check this out. Yes, here we can see that we have now employment status and then applying solo or with someone else. So now to test it out, we just will trigger another call, put in the information again, and then trigger the call. And there is the call again.
Hi, this is Sarah calling from Coastal Finance. Am I speaking with Tim?
Hi Sarah, yes you are.
Hey Tim, cool. So you just filled out a form online looking for a broker to help with loan options, right? Just want to make sure I got that right.
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. So, are you looking to buy a place, refinance, or something else?
I wanted to buy.
Okay, buying. Got it. And do you have a particular area or suburb in mind for the property?
Yeah, I want to go for Brisbane area.
Brisbane, awesome. And what's your approximate budget for the property?
Around 750K upwards.
All right, so around 750K or more. Cool. Do you have a deposit saved up, or how much are you thinking for that?
Yeah, I do have around 100K saved up for this.
Okay, 100K saved. That's a good start. And are you employed or self-employed right now?
I'm self-employed, actually.
Got it. Self-employed. And will you be applying for the loan just by yourself or with someone else?
This will just be me.
All right, just you then. And you mentioned you want to move as soon as possible, right?
And that's it. I mean, as you just heard, it actually asked both of the questions separately, exactly as we specified in the system prompt. And we did it all through the Claude console. And that's one iteration cycle. The iteration itself literally took me a couple of minutes, like 3 or 4 minutes. Obviously, you need to do the test calls, which take time themselves too, but this literally cuts the specific time for the iteration down by quite a bit. At least for myself it did. And also, it streamlines the workflow significantly. Now, let me put this into perspective. Before this workflow, iteration on a live voice agent looked like this. You call yourself, then you go into the Vapi dashboard, you read the transcript, you think about what's been wrong with this conversation. You open the system configuration, edit the system prompt, save, and then call yourself again. And depending on the complexity of the conversation or on the complexity of the assistant system prompt, this can take 15 to 30 minutes per iteration. And with this workflow, it's under 10 minutes for sure. And the quality of the diagnosis is also better because Claude Code is cross-referencing that transcript against the actual prompt. So it's not just out of memory what you wrote into the system prompt from like 6 months ago, but actually relevant. And the other thing that's changing is what you're actually doing in this time. Because you're not just copy and pasting, you're not clicking around in dashboards, you're making decisions, you're giving feedback, and you're staying in the thinking layer. And Claude Code isn't writing your voice agents, it's handling the mechanical parts of the iteration loop so you can focus on the part that actually requires your judgment. And now this is where it gets really interesting at scale. Everything I just showed you was manual, except obviously the analysis part, but whatever. You triggered every step manually. You said every step, do this, do that, gave feedback, approved, then rewrite. But you don't have to stay in this loop for forever. Once your agents are in production, taking real calls, you can actually schedule these analysis sessions where Claude Code does this for you automatically. And as we all know, at the moment, the token thing with Claude Code has been gotten a bit difficult. And that's why the way you would do it in this case is you would go a more deterministic route. And here's how you would handle the deterministic parts without burning tokens. Instead of having Claude pull up the filter transcripts through the MCP every single time, you let it write a Python script once. Something like pull all calls for assistant X from the last 1 day or the last 7 days, whatever. Filter for calls where duration is greater than 2 minutes but didn't result in a booked appointment, and export that into a transcript file to then analyze. That script runs cheap, it is deterministic, and Claude doesn't need to think about it. Then you feed that filtered batch into Claude once a week. It reads the transcripts, identifies the pattern across multiple calls, and proposes targeted prompt updates for your review. And this is the important part. It doesn't push the changes right away because it could make it worse, but rather it prepares everything so that you can have a look onto it and then approve it. And that's a weekly agent tuning session that costs you maybe 20-30 minutes of actual decision making. And that's compared to listening to the calls several hours, going into Vapi, doing the changes on the system prompt yourself, and just going mad on QA. So if you're building on Vapi and you haven't connected your Vapi MCP to Claude Code yet, do that first. It takes literally 2 seconds, and the link to the docs is in the description. And also, if you want to have the voice agent prompting skills and the analysis skills, go to the resource hub, which I showed you earlier, with the second link in the description down below. Now, if you're a service-based business and you want to integrate voice AI into your operations, more specifically speed to lead, meaning when somebody fills out a form on your website, you want them to be called instantly with a voice agent, or you want to, for example, reactivate all of your dead leads in the database with voice AI, then drop me a DM on LinkedIn or book a call with the first link in the description down below, and we can get you sorted ASAP. And with that, I hope you found this video helpful, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. Cheers.